Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that the secret word is Franklin. As some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema, the Twilight Zone series special, whatever you want to call it. I'm your host, Jimbo, and alongside me once again is...
ADZ here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world listening.
Excellent, excellent. Man, we have been having some fun with this episode and the one after it. We've just been in some heated discussions, so be on the lookout on the Facebook group page because we are going to be putting it all out there, so... very interesting, very interesting. So, Eric, let's go ahead and take this away.
Okay, we have episode number 17 from season 1. It is entitled The Fever, and it was directed by Robert Florey, and it was, of course, written by Rod Serling. And then I've got a section in here about featured music. I don't know if anyone's interested in that per se, but... it is a stock. It was primarily taken from Jerry Goldsmith's jazz themes, which are used as incidental music by many other Twilight Zone episodes. So jazz, the style of jazz music, is a running theme in a lot of the Twilight Zone episodes. And it was, the original air date, was on January 29th, 1960. So go ahead, Jimbo. You want to take the cast?
Sure. Playing the main character, we have Everett Sloan, and he does such a good job. He plays Franklin Gibbs, but he is best known probably for his role in Citizen Kane, where he played Mr. Bernstein. His wife was Vivi Janis. She played Flora Gibbs, and how many times did you hear that? Flora, leave me alone. This episode is great. William Kendis played Hanson. Lee Miller, he played Joe, and he's famous for being in Disney's Lady and the Tramp, where he played John Deere, and he also played the dog catcher. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Lee Sands was the floor manager. Mark Towers was the cashier. Art Lewis was the drunk. And Arthur Peterson played the sheriff.
Okay.
So the synopsis for this episode is pretty clear, concise. It is a man who has a disdain for spending money at a casino winds up catching the gambling fever when a certain machine keeps calling his name. So, Eric, let's take it away.
All right, so we drop into this particular episode. We have a drop in what looks like it would be something like Las Vegas. I think I read, though, that somewhere in here that it was actually shot in California, and they had to use slot machines that the police department, the LAPD, had, I guess, around as confiscated. I don't want to hopefully get into too deep of a dive here, but I guess it wasn't actually shot in Las Vegas, although it does have a lot of scenes of Las Vegas. So we enter the hotel casino lobby, or the main area for gambling there, and we see a lot of hustling and bustling and people enjoying themselves. And the characters of Joe and Hanson approach Mr. and Mrs. Franklin Gibbs, and they greet them and they talk about apparently they're actually getting their picture taken, and because they've won a contest, a turn of phrase, I think was Flora won a turn of phrase, the wife, and so they've gone on this 4-day 3-night vacation here in Las Vegas, and it was all paid. And so Mr. Hanson comes up and he wants to take their picture, and he greets them and talks about thanking them for being at the hotel. They talk a little bit about the room and how nice it is and so on and so forth. And then Jimbo, did you want to say something about this particular getting the picture?
Right. I want to throw in a couple of things here that just stuck out to me. For one, they said, "Hey, it's an all-expense paid trip." Okay. So my question is to you, that the first thing I'm going to bring up is, if it's an all-expense paid, gambling would be an expense. Did they have some sort of prize money that they could use to gamble?
Interesting.
Because if it's an all expense paid, means I'm not paying anything.
Yep. True.
Correct.
Yep.
So I don't understand. I don't understand why Franklin was so upset, because if his wife's going to spend a nickel or whatever at that machine to play here in a second, why is he so upset? If it's an all expense paid, that's one continuity error I didn't understand. I know sometimes that an all expense trip means that it's just your room, your food, your drinks, whatever. So that's one thing. Another thing I would like to point out right here is when Joe and Hanson come up and they say, "Hey, we're going to take a picture, send it to your local paper."
Yeah.
And she's like, they say smile, and they take their picture, and he said, "Well, hey," she's like, "Elgin Bugle." She's like, "That's our hometown paper." He's like, "What?" She's like, "The Elgin Bugle." He's like, "Oh yeah. We'll send a copy to him right away."
Right.
My thing is, I don't think they were even going to send a picture. I don't even think they was probably filming the camera.
Maybe not.
I think it's just one of those ploys that they do, that because you find out later throughout the show that once they get people into this casino, people catch the fever, hence the name, and they don't leave. They spend more money than probably that they came with, which we'll get into later. But I don't think that they were ever intended to send that photograph back to their hometown paper.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I would tend to agree. And it's interesting, too, because after they take the photo, Hanson leans in and he goes, he does mention something like, you have unlimited credit or something like that. He makes a comment like what you were just talking about. And then it was so interesting, his facial expression, when he tells Franklin Gibbs that he has like unlimited credit and it's all on the house, and he's expecting like a good and pleasant reaction, and Franklin is just a grouchy, he doesn't smile, and he's like a bitter old man, and it kind of throws off Hanson. His facial expression is awesome in that scene. He's like, wow, like I wasn't expecting that reaction. I was expecting a little bit more upbeat, pleasant reaction after you've just been told you won a free trip, all expenses paid, basically.
Right. And let's give Franklin some credit, because he's probably to me, I think Franklin is a well thought out man. He's like, he knows the type of place that he's in. He knows they're in Las Vegas, and you can tell the only reason he is there is because his wife won that trip. There is no way that this guy would plan to go there himself on a trip for no reason. I think one of the things that he went for is, hey, it's a free vacation. My wife entered this contest. She won. I'm going to just come along with her. I think that's the only reason he's there.
Yeah, for sure. Here's just a few things that I wrote about just as a character background of Franklin, just some notes that I jotted down. He is the quintessential stick in the mud. He's grouchy. He doesn't even want to get close to his wife. If you notice that in taking the picture, going back really to this opening scene, she tries to straighten his tie, and she wants to stand close to him to take the picture, and he's like pushing her away. He doesn't want to smile. And we'll get into later in the episode, he's really like the epitome of self-righteousness. Like we'll get into that a little bit more, but I mean, he comes off really poorly, even initially in this episode. I mean, he's just a real jerk. He's almost. It reminded me of the Burgess Meredith episode. The name escapes me now, but remember how the wife was really mean to him.
Time enough at last.
Remember, his wife was extremely mean and same kind of demeanor, but it's in reversal. Franklin is doing this to his wife. His wife seems very pleasant. She seems very nice, and she wants to have a good time. And he is just a total jerk. And it's almost like those roles were reversed for this episode.
I would really like to see them two married. That would have been a great episode.
Oh, wow.
Who could up one another?
That would be horrible. So if we move off of the initial scene here, we took maybe too much time on that scene, but just some movement about in the casino, and there's a lot of playing going on with different machines. You got craps and blackjack, and then of course the slot machines are sort of center stage. And this is where it gets to the part where kind of. You get to learn a little bit more about Franklin's self-righteousness. He's telling his wife, there's no way that, like Jimbo said earlier, there's no way I would be here. The only reason I'm here is because you won this trip, and I have no desire to be here. And he's just kind of going along because his wife dragged him there, basically. And, she's trying to encourage him to loosen up, maybe have a little fun, do a little gambling, and then some lady wins. She yells out and exclaims, "I won the jackpot! I won the jackpot! I won the jackpot!" And I thought it was interesting that the lady actually brings like a jackpot, like a basket of money over, with coins and dollars in it, and hands it to her, and she's really excited that she won the jackpot. And of course, Flora is excited to see someone else win, and she gets the notion like she wants to play, and. So she's, looking, she walks over to like a nickel slot machine, and then, Jimbo, do you want to take it from there? What happens next?
Well, yeah, she puts the nickel in, and here comes Franklin over there, like, "What are you doing, Flora?
Yeah.
What are you doing?" She's like, "Well, it's just a nickel," and he's like, "That's what's wrong with these people here. They come here, they spend their money, blah, blah, blah," and she's like, "Well, Franklin, the nickel's already in the machine," and he's like, "Well, all right, Flora," so she gets to pull it, and of course she loses. And he has the "see, I told you so" attitude. He's like, "Come on, let's go before." And then this drunk walks up. He's like, "Hey, buddy," and he's just slurring his words. He's leaning on the machine, and he's like, he's like, so he puts a I think it's a dollar machine. He puts a dollar in. He's like, you play it, buddy," and he's like, no. He's like, "Yeah, I insist." You know what I mean? So. This is, I think, the turning point of the episode, because you see him struggling. Like, he doesn't want to pull this lever. You can see it on his face. He doesn't want to pull it. But, hey, it's already in there. It's a free pull. It's already in there that he's going to do it. So, I mean, you see him looking at his wife from across the way. She's kind of got the smile like, oh, he's going to do it. And he looks at her and he's like, he's really, it's like we always say, you got your conscience on one shoulder. And your conscience on the other shoulder, like, go ahead, do it. No, don't do it. You got the good and evil on your shoulders. And you see him, man, just go up for that lever. He's almost slow motion, shaking, and he pulls that lever and he wins. And he just looks, the expression on his face is like, because he sees all those coins. Well, he's counting them up, and his wife comes over. She's like, she's excited for him. And I think it's $12 is what he ended up winning right there. So, Eric, go ahead and take it from there.
Yeah, you can just tell. Just by his reaction, and the acting is so good, that this guy is, the switch has been flipped. Like you said, this is a very crucial part in the episode. The switch has been flipped. The floodgates are open, and you can tell he's really probably like a greedy, kind of miserly man. And then when he wins this $12, and it was like, wow, this stupid drunk guy just left $1, and look what I have gained just by his stupidity. And he's really... This kind of harkens back to his self-righteousness. He says things. He'll go on and later in the scene to say things like, "Now you'll see." What's he say? Let me quote him. He says, "Now you'll see the difference between a normal, mature, thoughtful man and these wild idiots around here." If there's, and then later on in the episode, he'll say something like, if there's anything I know, it's morality. So he thinks everyone around him is a moron who's an idiot for coming here, to spending their money, and gambling is just immoral. He even says that a couple times, I think, in the script. You know, this guy is just the epitome of self-righteousness. He thinks he's better than everybody else, and he would never, ever get caught up in gambling or have that vice or anything like that. And that's what makes the episode, good, is that character is set so staunchly against everything that he's doing himself.
Right. So, I mean, he's dead set on taking this money with him. He's like, hey, we're taking this money. He's like, we're taking it back to our room. He's like, we're leaving with this money. And as they're walking away, you hear, Franklin. You're like, and he's like, did you say something to his wife? She's like, no. He's like, huh. He's looking around and come to find out, it's the actual slot machine saying his name. But this is where it gets a little tricky, because you don't know if it's actually saying his name or if it's actually, the change that's falling, the jackpot that's falling that's making the noise, and he just thinks it's saying Franklin. Because if you watch it a couple times, every time it says it, it sounds like the change falling, and it kind of sounds like Franklin too. I thought that was very interesting too.
I didn't pick up on that, huh? That was interesting. You know what else makes me think that he's super... Real quick, and then as they're walking away, that drunk guy comes back to the machine one more time, puts another $1 in, right? And he pulls the lever, and does he win money here? I can't remember. I think he wins again because it falls, and I think that's where, Yeah, I think he does win a few more dollars, but I just thought it was interesting. It goes to his character, like, once he cleans out the tray, he goes back and looks a second or maybe even a third time to make sure he got every last coin out of that tray. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. Yeah. So we move on. The scene changes, and we end up in the hotel room, that their accommodations that they have been given free of charge for the 4 days. And so Franklin is laying on the bed, and he can't sleep. He's just constantly thinking about winning money, and he hears I don't know if this is in his mind, though. That could be a third option. Is he just hearing the name in his mind, and he thinks that, we'll come to learn later that he thinks the slot machine is like alive and an entity, but he's hearing his name over and over. He decides he's going to get up in the middle of the night, and this money that's... Oh, it's interesting to note, too, I don't know if you picked this up. The scene changes from, like, the coins on the dresser, and then the camera, it goes back to his face. Yeah, the coin stack gets taller and taller and taller. I noticed that when I was watching the second time. So
I think this is where the fever is starting to get a hold of him, because he can't sleep, insomnia set in. And this is, he gets up, and she's like, Franklin, she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, one thing I know, he's like, is I know morality, like you said earlier. And this is what I thought. He's like, this money will not have this money tainting our pockets.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a very interesting quote, because guess what? The money doesn't taint his pockets, because he doesn't end up with nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought that was a really key moment in this episode when he says, I won't have this money tainting our pockets. So he's decided in the middle of the night, who knows what time it is, that he's going back down because he just wants to get rid of this money. He's going to feed it all back to the machine. So go ahead, Eric.
No, that's exactly right. And not only are we going to come to find out he gives back the money that he won, he gives back all of his own money that, out of his own bank account. Because that fever gets a hold of him and grips him. Several trips to the cashier to cash checks that he has written. Yeah.
Several.
Yeah. So he tells Flora, I'm going to go back down. I'm going to get rid of this money. And we're coming to this part in the scene. The scene changes again. And from the hotel room, and he's back down in the casino lobby, and he's on the one-armed bandit, and he's going to town. And he's just pumping quarters. And then Flora actually comes downstairs, and she tells him it's terribly late. And then I thought this was a pretty quotable scene here. Flora tells him, Franklin, this is... we come to this later in the episode, like a minute or two later. She says, this is Flora speaking. She says, Franklin, that's the third time you cashed a check. He says, I know that. She said, well, you've spent a great deal of money. He says, I know that too. Don't you think you ought to stop now? And then Franklin says, how can I stop? I've lost a great deal of money. You said it yourself. I've got to win it back. So the fever is in full pitch, and he is just pumping money into that one-armed bandit as fast as he can. And this goes on for several minutes, I guess. The scene sort of kind of stays constant. She's trying to get Franklin away from the machine, and he's telling her, no, shut up, go away. And I think even at one point, he like shoves her away with his arm. And he keeps, again, like I said, he keeps writing checks, and he goes to the cashier, and he's cashing those checks, which I thought was interesting that I guess in Vegas back then, you just wrote like a personal check, and then they would give you the money. It's a lot different now, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been to Las Vegas in a long time, but so anyway, he just keeps going and going and going. And Jimbo, did you have something you wanted to say? You said you had something you wanted to say about the water,
right?
Asking for water.
So after he blows up at her, she's like, Franklin, you're making a scene. Everybody's looking. He's like, don't tell me, what to do or whatever, basically. And so she goes away. So the next scene, you see him sitting there, and you see him. It kind of pans across the casino back to where he's sitting there, and he's like, I'm so thirsty. He's like, Flora, he's like, could you get me a drink of water? And I don't know if you caught this, but at the very beginning of the scene, when it pans from here and it pans down, in the background,
the light changes?
There is a sign that says, no, it says Oasis Cocktails.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, how awesome that he is saying that he is thirsty, and the cocktail lounge is named Oasis.
Huh.
Because what happens in the middle of the desert when you see an oasis, there's water there. And I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, I missed that one. So it gets to be about like...
And he's been on this machine for over 5 hours now, so let's not forget that either.
Right, and it gets to be like around 8 o'clock in the morning, and he's down to his last dollar, basically. He puts the dollar in the slot machine, and the handle will not come all the way down. And so he loses his mind, and he starts screaming, give me my dollar back, give me my dollar back. And he gets mad, and he pushes the slot machine over, and then he's ushered out by, looks like 2 security guys or a pit boss or somebody. And Flora is just...
Well, let me ask you a question right
Sure.
there. Let me ask you a question right there real quick. He put that quarter or dollar in or whatever, and he goes to pull the handle. Now, some of these old-time slot machines like that is once you put so much coins in there, it gets full and they have to empty it. So I'm wondering if the machine here is not stuck, it's just full from all the money that he has put in.
Possibly. That's a good, maybe a good explanation.
So basically it's his own demise and not the machine's fault, but it's his own demise for putting so much money in there. So that's just something I thought.
Yeah, that's an interesting layer to that whole story. So eventually, one of the floor managers comes over and puts an out of order sign. They stand it back up. And the next scene we come to is they're back in their hotel room, and he is Franklin, is having like a nervous breakdown. This guy's just laying in bed in his pajamas, and his mind is completely wrecked. He can't think of anything other than winning that money back. And he begins to describe the slot machine as being an entity, and that it is beckoning him and it's mocking him, and it's taking all of his money and it's messing with his mind. And then, Jimbo, did you count the number of times the word or the name Franklin was used in this episode? Because it was an extreme amount of times.
I didn't, but there is a lot, especially towards the end.
Yeah. It starts to get annoying to me personally. He calls the slot machine a thief. And he said he's worried about this one silver dollar. After all that money that he dropped, he's worried about that last dollar. He just can't get over that last dollar. And you'll see that plays an important role at the very end of the episode. He just can't get over the fact that he lost that dollar. And so he's having this conversation with his wife in the hotel room. And she's distressed because she sees that he's having like a nervous breakdown. And then, Jimbo, what happens from there? Do you remember?
So she's like Franklin. She said, "What are you doing?" She's like, "There's no one here." He's like, "It's got my money." And then the door opens up, and there's the machine, And what I thought was funny in this part is it's actually got a smiley face at the bottom of it, lit up smiley face at the bottom where the money came out. And it's mocking him. Once again, I believe this is all in his head at this point. And he's like, I can hear it. It's calling my name, basically. And the machine starts coming towards him. And she's like, come on, Franklin, just get back to bed. You're tired. You've been up all this time. And you hear that, Franklin, again. And he sees it standing at his door or whatever, and he can't believe it that this machine is there. So it starts coming in the room, rolling at him, and he doesn't know what's going on, and he is scared to death. So he shuts the door and doesn't stop it. He's still hearing Franklin. And I believe he turns around at this point. It comes busting through the door, I think, because he's looking in the mirror. It comes busting the door, and it's like chasing him. And she's like, his wife cannot see it. And she's like, it's chasing me. It's following me. Go ahead, Eric.
No, yeah. And then the dramatic scene is the slot machine, which that smiley face, you said that, and now it looks like the Amazon logo or something on the bottom of that slot machine.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But here's the grand scene. It chases him to the window, and he falls out the window backwards and falls to his death. And, of course, Flora is just, she screams, and she just is totally distraught. And then the next scene, we find three men at the bottom, where in the parking lot, I guess, where Franklin has landed. And one looks familiar, like the pit boss guy that from the casino. There's like one doctor and the sheriff, and they make a comment, something like, "Well, this is probably one of the worst cases I've ever seen of the fever." Kind of referring. They don't say the fever, but they refer to the fever. And the sheriff says, "All right, the show's over. Everybody go back to bed. Blah blah blah, whatever." And then what happens next, Jimbo?
As he's laying there with his outstretched arm at the bottom of the ground, all of a sudden, his dollar comes rolling up to him and lands right by his hand. And I thought, how fitting. So that's how this episode ends. So a couple of things that I found throughout the episode that I'll share real quick. This is actually inspired by a celebratory trip that Rod Serling took to Las Vegas when the Twilight Zone was first signed in 1959. His wife, Carol, she had such good luck at the casino, but he himself kept losing to a slot machine, unlike the one shown here, and he battled it for a good long while. So I thought that was very interesting that it's based on an actual event in Rod Serling's life. As you said, earlier about the slot machines in LAPD, because it was illegal to have them in California. But the producer Buck Houghton said that there were several policemen on the set at all times because they wanted to make sure that somebody didn't take one off the set and set it up in his uncle's barber shop. So I thought that was really funny too. The ending credits I thought was really interesting. Introduced the theme music later used in the second through the fourth seasons of the Twilight Zone show.
Okay.
This is the only point in the first season where it is used in place of the traditional theme music. The slot machine Franklin uses is the same prop that Ace Larson has in his coffee shop in the Twilight Zone, The Prime Mover, in 1961. The slot machine that's featured in this is modified Watling Roll-A-Top. And as Franklin lies on the pavement, the wide shot shows many pieces of glass on the ground surrounding his head and torso. However, when the dollar rolls towards his right hand, that side of his body is nearly free of all the glass shards. The next close-up shot of the dollar laying next to his hand is once again littered with many pieces of glass all the way around. So there's a little camera work that, continuity error with there.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the episode, Ron Sterling comes back on to narrate what happened to Franklin. He explains that the slot machine is called a one-eyed bandit, when in reality they have been referred to as one-armed bandits.
Oh.
And after losing all of his money, Franklin goes crazy, throws a fit, and knocks over the slot machine, which I think he should have Macho Man elbowed that thing. You know what I mean, Eric? But afterwards, Franklin and his wife go back to their room for the rest of the night. The casino would never have allowed Franklin and his wife to go back to their room. They would have kicked them out. They would have been suspended. They might have been able to go back and get their baggage and luggage, and then they would have kicked them out. There's no way they're going to tolerate that kind of attitude or, what's the word I'm looking for? Anger in their casino,
right,
for the safety of their Patreons, especially. So, Eric, I know we have different opinions on this episode. I let you start. I will pass the ball to your court to let you start.
Okay. I wasn't a fan of this one. I just think the Franklins over and over and over just started to annoy me after a while. I get the point. I would rank this probably near the bottom of the episodes that we've seen so far or watched and talked about. There are some good things to take out of it in the sense that don't be like Franklin. Don't be bitter. Don't have a vice of gambling. I mean, there are some warnings, I guess, some good things that warn you. Don't be self-righteous like him. So those were maybe the lessons that I took out of it. But as far as the overall episode, it probably wasn't one of my favorites. And I know you're going to tell me the exact opposite of why you loved it so much. So you go ahead and tell me exactly why I should love this episode.
I love this episode so much, and I'll tell you the one reason I really do. And that's the main character of Everett Sloane, the guy that plays Franklin Gibbs. I think in this episode you see how well he can act. He goes from being this grouchy old man, stuck up, stubborn, to this crazed fever pitch, just his facial expressions, his acting. He's yelling at his wife. The whole thing about it, how he's portrayed, he sweats, his vocals, everything. I love the guy. He should have won an Emmy for this episode. And I put it at the top, probably 2 or 3 of this season, just based upon his acting performance by himself. Now, and I believe this also has a great moral to the story. Like you said, don't get addicted to gambling. And I think what we're failing to realize in this episode is some people, this is sad but true, some people get so wrapped up in gambling that they either commit suicide or they get mixed in with the mafia because they own a lot of them. The mob owns a lot of them. They end up owing money to the mob, so they end up with concrete shoes in the bottom of a river somewhere. And I think that this episode is a bigger picture, not just about one man's struggle, but I think it encompasses a whole large array of things that could happen when you get into gambling and you get the fever, if you will. But like I said, it not only affects you, but now how is this going to affect Flora the rest of her life? Now she's without her husband, the breadwinner probably, because this is set back in what, early 50s maybe.
Yeah.
How is she? Yeah. No, I mean that's when the episode came out, but I mean did it come out? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know the timeline. They never really said.
Right.
So I look at it like this: not only does it affect him, because he's gone. It affects his wife and his family. I don't know if they have any kids. It doesn't really say. But now Flora's pretty much going to be the breadwinner of her family if they didn't have life insurance or anything like that. So I thought it was very telling that they drew a thing from real life to this episode that, hey, when you do something to take your own life or you get killed or whatever because of a vice such as gambling, then it not only affects you, but it affects your whole entire family in ways that you may have never thought about. And that's why I love this episode so much. It makes you think, not just, it said Franklin a bunch of times and I don't like it. That's my take.
Well, I will say that the messaging was good, like I alluded to earlier. I guess maybe it doesn't have the twists, and the story was sort of flat compared to other episodes of the Twilight Zone, so that's why I would rank it at the bottom. The messaging I thought was on point, and of course you explained that very nicely, and I would agree with all those things. It just, I wish there was a way they could have, I don't know, spruced it up a little bit more.
You don't think Everett Sloane played?
Oh no, I wouldn't take anything.
Everett Sloane played one of the best characters of the season so far that you have watched. He did not play one of the best characters that you have seen as far as acting abilities. I would put Burgess Meredith up there at the top because I love that episode, and I like the lady from The Hitchhiker. I think she did really good too. But I think his performance is flawless.
Yeah, I would put it up there near the top. Sure, I wouldn't take anything away from his acting performance for sure. I just, like I said, I guess it's just the whole story was just sort of flat. And there was, the Twilight Zone has those great twists and great endings. But no, I wouldn't take anything away from Everett Sloane's performance. It definitely was ranking near the top.
And that's why we're doing this Twilight Zone, because it's okay to disagree. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Everybody's going to like their favorite episodes of the Twilight Zone. A lot of people aren't going to like some of the episodes of Twilight Zone. Like this one, me and you differ on, but guess what? It's still a Twilight Zone, and it's still a good watch. Regardless if it's not one of your favorites, it's still a good episode, just from Rod Serling creating this and everything. So, Eric, you got anything to finally wrap up with, or are we done?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right. Well, I think this episode of The Twilight Zone is coming to a close. The Fever. And that's a wrap. Eric, take it away.
And cut.